Happy Monday, everyone. I just wanted to pop on and share a quick story and talk a little bit about my upcoming book and some really cool stuff. If you are anyone that has had mono or EBV or is worried about swollen lymph nodes, then this is the video for you. I want to talk about it. If you know somebody that has been struggling with Epstein-Barr virus or swollen lymph nodes or is nervous about it, tag them below or share this video. This is really, really important information. So you may have heard of me talk about my friend Kasia. If not, she is the EBV expert. EBV stands for Epstein-Barr virus. It's well known as the monovirus, and everyone pretty much gets it. It's kind of like the chicken pox, right? Like everybody's been exposed to somebody that's had mono, and so you probably have the virus somewhere in your system. So the important thing to know about it though, and this is a little lesser known, is that while most people will have an acute 1 to 2 week issue with it where it turns into full-blown mono and they're fatigued and they go to the doctor and they get diagnosed with EBV, and then their body kind of handles it just like any other virus and then it goes away. For most people it stays controlled or latent in their body for the rest of their lives, and that's sort of how we think about it. Yeah, I had mono back in college, it lasted 2 weeks and I've been fine ever since. Hi everyone, comment below if you're watching, hashtag replay if you're watching the replay. I want to know who's here so I can say hello to you. So everybody's been exposed to it. Most people's bodies handle it just like any other virus, and then it remains in the body but doesn't bother them for the rest of their life. For other individuals, it can remain in the body but then get triggered by stress, by different foods, by stress covers so many things, whether it's mental, emotional, physical, toxic load, that sort of things. There's a lot of different things that can sort of trigger it in certain people. And so the reason this is really important to know is because chronic EBV or chronic Epstein-Barr virus is something that is not as talked about. And so many people don't even know that it's a thing. So when we get swollen lymph nodes, when we are sick, when we have a cold, right? Like when it's from drainage, basically, they're sore. We've all had that. We're like, oh my gosh, my neck feels really sore. It feels like I'm draining a lot. I just had, a crazy cold and my sinuses were draining, and that makes sense. So that's your immune system and your lymph system trying to flush everything out, right? And there's a soreness that comes along with a healthy lymph inflammation that eventually it drains and goes away. With Epstein-Barr, you can have lymph nodes swell, and in Hodgkins, you have lymph nodes swell, and they're not painful. Now, the reason I'm connecting these two is because Epstein-Barr is associated in 40% of Hodgkin's cases. So when you're doing research for Hodgkin's and what causes it and what's associated with it and what may have been happening before the diagnosis, Epstein-Barr is associated with the development of Hodgkin's in 40% of cases. That's pretty significant. So if you saw my post earlier, I was talking about my friend who her son had multiple swollen lymph nodes, and they had gone to the doctor and he had been told that he has Epstein-Barr mono, but they were just wanting to monitor it and they weren't going to pursue it any further. So I guess, I'm not sure the period of time that he had had this, but they had been there for a significant period of time, to the point where his mom was concerned. And when she heard my story that I had one swollen lymph node, went to get an ultrasound, went to get a CT, went to get a biopsy, turned out to be Hodgkin's, she was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to really push this. She went and she pushed to get a diagnosis, and turned out I had stage 1, he had stage 2. Stage 2. And they knew that he had Epstein-Barr and were just monitoring it, and they didn't push for the biopsy. So I'm sharing this because it's really, 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 really important, and it's an easy thing to get. So everybody has Epstein-Barr, right? Somewhere in your system. So what do you do about it? If you think you have Epstein-Barr and you know that it's associated in 40% of Hodgkins cases, what the heck do you do? Well, if you're worried about it at all, go to the doctor. But also, you can test for Epstein-Barr, and there's some testing that you can do on your own. So there's a difference between sometimes when you go to conventional medicine and functional medicine, there are different ranges that you look for, and sometimes there are even different markers that you look for. So conventional medicine wants to make sure you're not dying, right? Which is fair. That's what they're good at. Functional medicine wants to make sure that you are functioning optimally. So there's sick care on the conventional side, which is perfect. We need that. That's excellent. But then there's health care on the functional side, where it's like, we really want you to be healthy. We want you to have your optimal level of health. We want you to feel amazing. And we want to catch things before you get sick, before you get into a disease, because then you go into the sick care model. So what can you do if you're wondering about this and you don't want to get to the sick care model, or maybe you have some swollen lymph nodes and you're really concerned about it? I would get an EBV test, and it's really easy. I did it myself. So when I got diagnosed, I started doing all my research and I started asking what the heck contributed to this? What can I do to support my body? I knew that Kasia was the EBV expert. I had seen that she had published this book called the EBV, or the Epstein-Barr virus solution. So I knew that that existed. So I reached out to her. She said, hey, get a test. Now, when she told me this was when I was going through the process. Sorry about that. That's when I was going through the process of diagnosis and staging. And I had just gotten my biopsy and all this kind of stuff. And I was in Chicago because I was getting my staging and my PET scan to figure out where I was. So I came home, I ordered the test. Actually, before that, while I was in Chicago, I asked the doctor to test. And the reason I'm sharing that part is because they will only test sometimes for certain markers. If they test at all, you kind of have to push them on some things. Like, hey, I'd really like to be tested for EBV. Can you test for that? And sometimes they'll say yes, and sometimes they'll say no. Either way, if they say yes, sometimes they'll only test for certain markers. Now, the reason this is a problem is because there are 4 specific markers that you need to have on a test in order to give you the full picture of if this is something that has been in your body for a long time. Yeah, all the tests are going to tell you that, and all of them are going to come back positive because we've all had mono at some point in our lives or been exposed to it, okay? So it's kind of pointless. But the other ones are going to help you interpret if you're currently in a flare, if it's more recent, that sort of thing. That's where the important information comes. So if your doctor's not willing to run all 4 markers, then you can order it for yourself. Now, where do you go to figure this out? Kasia has a website. It's ebvhelp.com. It's easy to navigate. She has testing information. She even has a little bit of information on how to interpret the test. So if you truly, truly, truly cannot afford support, I would get her book, and I would get read her website on how to interpret it, and then you can kind of put your own pieces together. But I would highly encourage you to consider working with her in one facet or another, because she is extremely knowledgeable, this is like her life's mission, is helping people with EBV. So if you are somebody that has suffered from fatigue on and off for years, which is the primary symptom of EBV, and or you have experienced swollen lymph nodes and are concerned, I would absolutely pursue that path, because it can make a huge difference. I wish that I had known that I had chronic EBV, like 6 years ago, because then I could have addressed it and managed it. Now, here's the other fun fact about EBV, besides it being so closely associated with developing Hodgkins. The other fun fact is that it's something that never goes away. It's not really a virus that you can eradicate. So most people, like I said, they deal with it, they have mono, it's gone, boom, it just stays in their body and they handle it, they never have symptoms. For other people that have the chronic EBV that maybe gets triggered by stress or triggered by travel or triggered by different foods, and then you experience this overwhelming sense of fatigue, that is where you're going to have to learn what triggers it and how to manage it. And that's where Kasia is the expert in terms of lifestyle and supplementation, where if you have what's called a flare, you can support your body, boom, get out of the flare and manage it so that you can go back to feeling healthy and normal and energized. So you basically squish it, right? You give your body what it needs to handle the virus and get back to life. And then you're able to identify what your triggers are, what supplements are just exactly right for your body that are dialed in for you so that you can feel your best. And then you're able to get through life managing this virus that, like I said, is chronic for some people. So if you're interested in that, check out her website, ebbhelp.com. But I specifically wanted to mention a couple other things. She is running a webinar, so if you kind of want to get to know her and like maybe hear a little bit more about it, like I said, she's the expert, not me at all, is next Saturday, October 5th, and I will post that link below, and I'm going to be sharing more about that throughout the week, so you'll see her name and you'll see that information a couple times. But I would highly recommend that you check it out. Again, if you know anyone that has mono, that has chronic fatigue symptoms, that has swollen lymph nodes, send them to this webinar. Let them get to know her. Give them this information. It can't hurt to be like, hey, you were telling me about your swollen lymph node the other day, and I came across this video. I'm going to send this to you because there's a free webinar on Saturday. Like, be the best friend ever because you were thinking about them, and send this their way. So webinar on Saturday, that's going to be really, really awesome. She also has, and this is what, at the end of the webinar, she'll explain this as well. She has a program that she's created, you guys. So if you do have EBV, if you are someone that knows you have EBV, that you struggle with it, that you're tired all the time, she has a program that she has developed that is going to teach you all of these things, how to manage it, what triggers it, how to eat for it, what supplements to use, that sort of thing. And it's really in-depth, really planned out. She is just super, super smart. So I hope that's helpful. All right, let's talk about Healthy Through Hodgkins. All right, so I am publishing a book, and I just signed on with my self-publishing company. And why is this? I'm sorry that I'm poking the phone. It gets really dark, and I don't know why the light adjusts. I think it's probably because of the window light back there, and then it messes up the color. Sorry. So I promise I'm not sitting in a shadow. So Healthy Through Hodgkins is my free Facebook group. So if you have not already joined that, please do join that. It's specifically for women with Hodgkin's disease, but it's for anyone that's recovering from cancer, anyone that's diagnosed with cancer. I speak through the lens of Hodgkin's because that was my personal experience, but really it's empowering cancer patients. It's information on integrative cancer care, on detoxification, on recovery, on all of these things, on nutrition. So it's really just a platform to encourage cancer patients and let you feel like you're in charge. You have information. You can go to your doctor with questions. You can be a participant in your care instead of just a recipient. Okay, that's really, really, really important to feel empowered through the process. So that page is there, and I'm writing a book. And my goal with this book, or let me rephrase that, I wrote a book. So my goal with this book is to have it available so that anyone that knows someone that gets diagnosed with Hodgkin's can say, oh my gosh, Kylene wrote this book. It's called Healthy Through Hodgkin's, and it's like a guide to integrative cancer care and what she did during her treatment process, and the questions she asked, and the lifestyle things that she used, and the supplements, and this sort of thing. And so I want it to be something that can be handed to someone that's been newly diagnosed, or even if they're in recovery, but they just want some more, they want someone that they can relate to, they want some information on integrative care, maybe some next steps. What do I think about? Like, how do I get started? Who do I work with? Who are the specialists? What's free? What's available for me that's free? So I have a whole section in there about like budget. And it's okay. Like, if you have a really little budget, you can still take these steps. This is what you can do. If you have a medium budget, take these steps. If you have a huge budget, take these steps. So I talk about that a little bit in the book as well, just to make sure that everybody knows there is at least some option. There is something you can do regardless of budget. So that's in there as well. So the book is written. It is currently being edited by a professional. And I just signed on with the self-publishing company, so I have to work through all of those details as well to get my cover done, to get the formatting right, and I'm going to be launching at the beginning to mid of January, so I'm really, really excited about that. So just tuck that in the back of your mind and be thinking if there's anyone that you know that has Hodgkin's, that would be a great, awesome gift for them. If you really just want to get to know my story, that's in there as well. So, so I'm really excited to share Kasia's her program with you and her webinar. Again, it's free. She's super smart. So if fatigue or swollen lymph nodes or mono is in your history, definitely check out this webinar. It's free on Saturday. I will make sure that when I'm done posting this, that the link to that is below. And if you have any other questions, let me know. But I'm super excited for all this cool stuff coming down the road. So I'll talk to you soon. Bye.